Exactly. It's just demand driven. It was demand driven. And so at one point it was felt, then why not just put up a separate entity that can host expos, but still remain within the mall. And you can see we are just in the mall.
Sarit Expo is the largest beamless venue in East Africa.
Yes, when you talk of column-free, it is the largest here in the region.
Last year, I had Mr. Sarit during a roundtable we had at Strathmore. He mentioned he did benchmarking, and there was a delegation that went to South Africa, so did some benchmarking. Did this idea, was it there in 1984 or it came later onwards in the early 2000s?
Okay. So coming up with the topics, looking for the speakers, and then that's where now mice started to come in. You're looking for hotels, you're looking how do you enhance the experience. If every other month you're calling people for training, they want to see something different, maybe taste different food. At one point, do you want to have some light moments, say in the evening, can we have a cocktail?
I can tell South Africa has been of great inspiration to Sarit Expo. So what other countries do you guys benchmark with in terms of looking at standard industry, best industry procedures to ensure that Sarit Expo aligns to the global standards?
You know, all the pieces of mice fall into that when you're taking a delegation. Because if I'm taking 100 people from here to, even if it is to Uganda, there's an element of I'll need a conference room, there's an element of I need the accommodation, you know, all the facilitative pieces with mice would come into place.
I've realized that Sarit Expo is more of expositions, more and exhibition, less than conferencing. So why so?
For example, here we hosted 6,000 people for the TTNT. The juice party here, 6,000. So it means because we hosted Ruga. So there's also other elements of that. But the side for concert is a little bit well served.
You've been tapping into 3 industries. One is education. The other one is the tourism landscape. So very niche industries. So what was the interest about it? Why those specific industries? And why host in-house events?
So we have a huge data bank of third-party service providers. So an international expo is coming, they have need for printing of the lanyards. We will get one of our SMEs to come and support. There's somebody who wants audiovisual, massive audiovisual equipment will work. There are those who are seeking accommodation. We work with the hotels around us. There are those who maybe even want, after they finish, the delegates want to go for a tour of the Nairobi National Park. We'll get a travel agent. So in terms of that economy or that part, we support because we work with a lot of third-party providers.
Who's Carole?
Carole is the general manager at the Sarit Expo Centre.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Simon Peter, Mice Ambassador for Kenya. Today we are hosted by Carole Kadenge, the Managing Director of Sarit Expo. Sarit has been in operation for the last 41 years, and the whole expo here started fully operation in 2019. But before we move on, I'll want to take you through the Sarit Expo Centre. Have a look at it. Hello, we are back, and you can tell Sarit Expo is the largest beamless venue in East Africa. Hello, Carole, how are you?
I'm very well.
Nice to have you.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Karibu sana.
Thank you so much. You guys have a huge venue around here. I trust it's the largest in East Africa?
Yes, when you talk of column-free, it is the largest here in the region.
Who's Carole?
Carole is the general manager at the Sarit Expo Centre. She's a mother of 2.
And
really Professionally, I can say I have three professions.
Yeah.
First, I was a lecturer in government at the National Youth Service. Then I transitioned into banking, where I was a portfolio manager and a business club manager. And then now I'm moving into something different. I'm now taking care of the facility, sitting within an event and industry space that I enjoy on a day-to-day.
All right. So now take us through your professional background. So how did you tap into the MICE ecosystem? And during the introduction, you said you have in education space, that is you've been a lecturer, and also you have quite a heavy portfolio in the banking industry. And to be specific, it's trade facilitation and the business club. So how did you get into MICE? Is it something that you thought of?
What I'll say is it's not something that I thought of. However, just planning events is something that I enjoy to do.
All right.
You know, the way from somebody when you're small, in groups, people will identify. So we want to do a trip to the Mara. In a group, there's somebody who they know, they say, okay, Simon can coordinate that because you enjoy picking the pieces, saying, where do we get the hotel? Where do we get the driver? Are there any fun places to see? Just coordinating the whole thing. So I love, I think, coordinating. And so that places me, you know, in a place where I'm really thriving. I'm very happy to be here. But in terms of my career, how I reached here, when I finished university, I was employed by the government at the National Youth Service. And I was a lecturer there for entrepreneurship, English, linguistics. Then I moved into, that was at the craft school. We had a national craft school. That's in Ruaraka. Then after that, I transitioned into our Institute of Business Studies, still within NYS. And so I spent a good 14 years there.
All right.
There, I was not doing a lot of anything to do with MICE, not really. But towards the back end of my career, I had opportunities to be trained by the government. You know, you're a trainer of trainers, so I would do some facilitation of trainings at the time, which was sponsored either by the UN, you know, just to upskill lecturers within the space. Then a different opportunity came my way, and I decided to take the challenge. That was now moving completely into a different sector, which was banking. However, I just want to add that it was not completely different in the sense that my main mandate at the time was to be able to develop training programs for SMEs.
All right. Interesting.
And because I was lecturing on entrepreneurship, it was a good fit for me. So coming up with the topics, looking for the speakers, and then that's where now MICE started to come in. You're looking for hotels, you're looking how do you enhance the experience. If every other month you're calling people for training, they want to see something different, maybe taste different food. At one point, do you want to have some light moments, say in the evening, can we have a cocktail? And so I did that, and within that portfolio, we were also taking care of SMEs mainly. And one of the things we did to upskill them was, apart from giving the numerous trainings in the course of the year around the country, was we said we want to expose them to what's happening outside our borders.
All right.
And at the time we were starting it, the world was not as open as it is today. I believe now you can go to China virtually, you know, go somewhere and learn a lot about it without necessarily having to go there physically. But at the time, it was important for people to go, to see, to touch, to understand. And when those opportunities come, obviously, they open your mind to what's happening around the world.
That was more of like a trade mission.
Yes. So we used to organize a lot of, I would say on average, in a year, we would do 6 trade delegations to different parts of the world. And a lot of those, we got a lot of support from government, specifically the Ministry of Trade and Industry at the time and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Because on average, we would be taking, give or take, 100 to 120 business customers.
Interesting.
Take them for trade shows in China, take them to explore agriculture in Brazil, take them to Israel to learn how this desert place is able to do all this. So you attend the Agri-Tech Expo, we do some visits into the field, and that is how I now started being exposed into the world of expositions of mice. You know, all the pieces of mice fall into that when you're taking a delegation. Because if I'm taking 100 people from here to, even if it is to Uganda, there's an element of I'll need a conference room. There's an element of I need the accommodation. You know, all the facilitative pieces with mice would come into place. So I did that, and towards the end of my years at ABSA, the last 4 years before I joined here, I now had transitioned into the card product as a product manager, and that is what I was handling. But still within that, I was still doing events for customers.
Actually, basically, I can tell you have a very rich portfolio when it comes to mice. It's only that by then you didn't know it was mice.
Yeah, I was not calling it mice. I just knew it's events. I need to take customers here or bring them here. But actually, it's true because I was organizing meetings. We were doing conferencing, exhibitions. Really, that was the core. The core of what I was doing.
Interesting. So
and now I find myself here.
So now it's now almost an year since you are the general manager at Sarit Expo. How's experience?
Very rich, very fulfilling. Every day is different in eventing, if I can. If there's such a word. No day is the same. And I've gotten a lot of exposure from interacting with different people from different parts of the world, from locals, you know, because all the expos we run here, there are those we run internally, and the majority are hosted by external event organizers. So they all tap into different pools of the public, both internationally and locally.
So how did Sarit Expo came to be? So back in 1984, so was the vision of having column-free Expo Centre in East Africa at the top of mind? And last year I had Mr. Sarit during a roundtable we had at Strathmore. He mentioned he did benchmarking, and there was a delegation that went to South Africa, so did some benchmarking. So did this idea, was it there in 1984 or it came later onwards in the early 2000s?
Okay, thanks for that. So in 1984, it actually started hosting exhibitions by default. So the mall had been put up, and there was a space, a big space that was not yet occupied. So the management of the mall was approached by the American Women Association, requesting for this space, can you give us space to host? We want to have arts and crafts from people come to buy. So they were given the space, and they came and they hosted that bazaar. I think those days they would call them bazaars. And what happened is there was a lot of the public came in, and they did that bazaar for a number of years. And so from that, the thinking changed. Not really changed, but was enhanced in terms of saying, okay, so we can have a mall, but we can also have such spaces to do the same. And from that, it just took off. With different events being hosted, and then capacity reaching maximum, moved to again a different part of the mall, again the capacity. So it was demand now from the public that made it keep evolving. Even for myself, when I told you that I was organizing events at Barclays. I did organize, I came here myself as an event organizer, and I did a trade show for SMEs. We started one time, we had 30 exhibitors. The following year, we moved to 50. Yes, I also organized here. I came as a client, but now I'm here. And then once they saw the potential within that space, and not only the potential, also the need for such a facility, then over the years it evolved, and here is where we are.
All right, interesting. So then in business terms is what you say, it is induced by demand.
Exactly, it's just demand driven. It was demand driven, and so at one point it was felt, then why not just put up a separate entity that can host expos, but still remain within the mall. And you can see we are just in the mall.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, which is a very good stuff, because also interacting with some of event organizers, they prefer this venue because delegates can do shopping within the same building. So I can tell South Africa has been of great inspiration to Sarit Expo. So what other countries do you guys benchmark with in terms of looking at standard best industry procedures to ensure that Sarit Expo aligns with the global standards?
Okay, thank you. So for the beginning, the benchmarking that was done with South Africa that Mr. Sarit did was essentially structural, to see if you want to put up a world-class convention center, what does it look like?
All right.
Yeah. So that was done. And then from that, lessons were taken and the facility came up.
Right.
Now, once the doors open and we start running the business, we would say we benchmark, of course, internally with other convention centers that are within the country, and also regionally. Because remember, because of where we are placed, an international expo has a choice of coming to Nairobi, going to Kigali, going to Addis Ababa. So those are the ones we would also look as our possible competition, because they could also attract the same type of events that we could attract because of the region.
Oh, you mentioned actually Addis Ababa.
They also have convention centers there. They host a lot of expos, conferences, summits. Yes. Actually, Kigali is because their facilities is new and
there's that buzz
thought
around.
out. There's the buzz around it, so it's a good facility. But Addis also have the same. They also have one, not as new as the Kigali one, but yes, they do.
So what are some of the top 3 things we can learn from those benchmarks? So what can we learn from Rwanda, South Africa, and Ethiopia when it comes to expositions and exhibition?
So because physically I have not visited any of them, but I do know when tours are being done, they come up as one of the competitors. For example, now the event we hosted, I think it's 3 weeks ago, the air cargo was previously hosted in South Africa, but it has now moved to Kenya, and we have been privileged to host it. We hosted it in the month of February. It has found a new home here. So when you think about benchmarking, a lot of it speaks to introducing changes within your infrastructure. For example, expanding capacity. Which of course the way the facility is now, it's not being expanded. This is the maximum that it can take. So a lot of the leading convention centers, if let's say I go to an exhibition, if I go to Kigali Convention Center, I could see things that I say this would be good to have, but then there would be a limitation in terms of the capacity for us. So for now, the business that we have, we are able to maintain and sustain. What we are looking at in terms of now building the scale of our venue, I would say, is in terms of the experience that we give customers when they're within our walls, is in terms of adoption of technologies. Because when you attend some of the expos around the world, even from the way registration is done, we are not yet there. So even before we think of saying, okay, we need a bigger Sarit, a bigger Sarit Expo Centre, we have a lot of things we'd like to improve on. And those mostly we see them from the international exhibitions that we attend. And then, of course, as a center, we belong also to international organizations, associations that represent the exhibition specifically space. So not only MICE, but we are members of UFI, which is the International Convention for Global Association of Exhibitions.
Actually, I saw you attended, I think last year, one of the events. So how was it?
So when you go for those, one of the things that it really opens up is two main things. First, within the organization, about 70% are exhibition organizers who organize exhibitions worldwide. So from there, obviously, you're able to form very useful business connections. And the more we attract those scale of expos to our center, they also will come with requirements that help us to be agile and move with the times. Because the way we learn a lot when they're here, when Big Five is hosting an expo, We will not just be sitting with, we are walking around and seeing how are they doing the registration, how are they mapping their booths, how are they branding the venue, how are they doing their opening, because now most of it is experience. You can see as you've come here, Simon, we have a top class venue.
Yes.
But I am sure you would not come back again if the experience, you will not come just for the beautiful space. So it's a lot of how a customer interaction, very important. Adoption of technologies.
Yes.
Adoption of technologies. Some, of course, would involve some kind of capital input, but where you are able to elevate your experience, the better. I think you know very well, long time registration, you'd go and stand on a line, your Simon who?
A pen and paper.
A pen and paper, your number, your email address, and even you're not being, now we started first by writing it for you.
Yes.
Then people saw, the lines are still long. Maybe if we give people to write for themselves, it will be faster. So you go to a registration desk, it's very long, with many papers, everyone write, you know. Then even you're given the band, you write your name and clip it on yourself. But now you've seen, we're able to do pre-registration many places for people. So trying to make it a little bit smoother for somebody on entry. And identification of, because now the world is data, regardless of sector.
It's the new
we are just growing with, and how do you get the right data so that you're able to give the best to clients and to the public? Because for us it is two things. We have the customer who is used the event organizer, you've booked the space. However, when your clients are coming, they are coming for your event, which is separate from us. They are in our venue. So we also play a role in making sure your event is uplifted. So experience is what we want. Data is what we want. A lot of feedback. Then we are moving to, we keep talking about AI. AI will replace some jobs, some not, of course. AI is good, but also has its limitations because human interaction still is really key. But adoption of those to help us understand what does the customer want, what does the exhibitor want, how do we give them the most value. So if I'm able to have a heat map in here, I would be able to see, we are soon hosting our holidays and tourism fair. If I'm able to see as Simon walks through the booths, it's telling me you are only stopping at the airline booths. Why? It means you have a need for travel, so that is where. There's another one who is only stopping at the lodges which are in the coast. They are thinking of a holiday, you know. So it's just that it's very intense right now. So many things we still try to collect as manually as possible and use that information to inform decisioning. Then we also have the virtual reality type of events. How do I, when I'm marketing, whether I want to market Sarit Expo internally or externally, many times now, if I want to know about, we've talked about Kigali. I can go to their website, I'll be able to see the lay. It gives me an idea. Very useful. But now we are at the next level. How do I give an immersive experience? Is that possible? So when you see Sarit Expo wherever you are, you can be able to walk around the halls virtually to appreciate the space, appreciate the size. Also, how do I give you a floor plan? You come to me and you say, this is what I want. I will need X number of booths, but I want them placed this way. You would need to use some kind of AI thinking to develop that for you. You want to run an expo or a conference hybrid. We need to be able to see how do we execute that seamlessly for you. So the ones who are here physically and the ones who are somewhere in the UK, all of them are part of
and parcel of the event. So I think it's quite a huge portfolio that you can learn from the international communities. And during the conversation, we've actually touched on infrastructure, which I think it's a thorn in our mice flesh. And another thing, I've realized that Sarit Expo is more of expositions, more and exhibition, less than conferencing. So why so?
I think that will, that will definitely take me back to the inception of in 1984.
Right.
When it started with the request for a space to showcase and sell, which is what exhibitions do. Exhibitions primarily they showcase, and then there are some where you are also able to purchase, but mostly it's to expose. Yeah. So because that was the grounding, maybe if that American Women Association in 1984 came and said we need a conference space, maybe now this would be, but that was the need. And because it was working, that's the trajectory it took. So you are very right. Over here, 65 to 70% of what we do is host
exposition.
Yes.
All right. So
but we also are able to do about 20% of conferences, about 10% we are able to do private events. Like weddings, like gala dinners for corporates. And then, of course, 10% we are a venue, but we also organize our own events, our own exhibitions.
In-house events.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So just take you back. So infrastructure. It's a whole lot conversation. So what's your take on that? So how do we solve this infrastructure stuff?
We need some, and I think when you hear the conversations around mice, one thing that is always comes up is capacity. Very many people within the space will talk about capacity, and that's why as a country we tick all the boxes in terms of being able to attract international summits, international conferences. What at some level lets us down is our capacity.
All right.
And to be able, for example, now to put up a 20,000, 10,000 type of facility, you can see the amount of investment that is required. So what we would need is an effort from government, either coming up, how do they come up with policies within MICE that make it attractive for me if I'm an investor to say, okay, there's merit for me in putting up this 10,000 or 20,000 capacity facility. So there's a way investors would need to be incentivized or attracted to look at it as a space. Because even you, Simon, if now you're sitting and you actually had it, you would want to know that when I put in this investment, it is going to continuously pay, because the input So it would need government. Yes, government must spearhead the effort. But also, how do they also facilitate any private sector investor who wants to do the same? How do they make it as lean and smooth as possible?
So basically, that means it's an initiative on the PPP.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Public-private partnership.
Exactly.
Because also just to add on that, again, having experience from the banking sector, you can validate this. Kenya, we do not have as much capital. Because also if you look at in fact, recent statistics are showing that the banks are loaning more to the government and leaving out the private sector. So, and the private sector has no money to do business. So, and also recently we saw the CBK reduce the interest rates for the banking sector. At least let's see the uptake of those loans, if they are going to actually come up. So basically I think PPP will be a very good, will be a good start.
PPP will be good because, and I cannot speak confidently about the other convention centers in Nairobi. However, my thinking is that a lot of them are in the same place we are. What do I mean by that? There are some events they are having to say no to. Why? Because of capacity. Yes. Because in terms of infrastructure, more or less, for the time being, we have things that can meet the standard, but we need bigger ones of those.
We need more.
Because we have enough outdoor spaces. And when we think about MICE, it's not only for us, our forte is exhibitions, of course, but there's conferencing area, there's concerts area. There's concerts. For example, here we hosted 6,000 people for the TTNT. The juice party here, 6,000. So it means concert. We hosted Ruga. So there's also other elements of that. But the side for concert is a little bit well served.
All right.
Because we have big venues. We recently had the Banner Boy there.
Yeah.
That venue could hold that capacity.
Yes.
So for events of that nature, we are in a slightly better place. But to attract the big international expos, then there's quite a bit of work to be done around there.
All right, interesting. Yeah. So in-house events.
Yes.
Sarit has been curating its own in-house events.
Yes.
So what was the interest towards it, and why curate in-house event vis-a-vis letting other players come and have the same event? I've been observing Sarit Expo very closely. Yeah. You've been tapping into 3 industries. One is education, the other one is the tourism landscape. So very niche industries. So what were the interest about it? Why those specific industries, and why host in-house events?
Okay, I'll start with why host in-house events.
Yeah.
And it will still take me back again to the inception.
Now, 1984.
Exactly. Now, remember, they came, asked for the space and used it for one event, for that bazaar. Then we start asking ourselves, so it means here we can also host, instead of having what I would call a dead space.
All right.
Yeah. Because for us here, we would like every day something is happening here.
All right.
So if there are times when nothing has been booked, why not also curate our own?
Right.
That is how it all started. That is how it started. And it started first with tourism, people looking for one-stop shop. Because remember 1984, there was no... Now you can go on the internet and look for the agent and compare prices, go to booking.com. It was not there. So it was a question of how do we bring everybody from tourism. This looks like a sector people like to travel. Let's bring them in the room and have the public come and discuss the holidays. And that is where it birthed.
All right.
And then because travel seasons, you notice for us we have two. We have holidays, which is taking place this month, targeting Easter travel. Then we have Getaway in October, targeting the December travel. Then from that evolved need and constant collection of feedback. Was why don't you host one for homes? If you could bring people here for us to choose holidays, what about we want to buy things for homes? Homes and Gardens was birthed. Nice. And they have been extremely successful. Like the holidays which we are doing, we are celebrating the 40th year. 40th year of the 40th edition. This end of this month. So now from that, we positioned ourselves and said, if we can get this right, and we are getting it right, why not explore other areas? So from those 3 main ones that have run for all the entire years, last year we introduced 2 new expos. One was the Mental Wellness Expo, which we introduced in May. The first edition went very well, so we've expanded it into a bigger hall. We are having the second edition this May. Then we introduced the kindergarten, that's the education one. And how did we land on kindergarten? I think if you check, we have very many education-related fairs happening around the year in the country. But the kindergarten section of it, most will be universities or higher education leaning.
Actually mostly higher education,
we saw a need there. And I think when you think of kindergarten, a lot of parents go through a lot of research and thinking before they see, okay, this is where I need to set my child up. So we also introduced the first edition, again, very well received by the public. And we are hosting again, we've expanded it, we are doing a bigger edition. Then we've introduced 3 more this year. We are going to have quite an exciting and busy year. Next, we are having an Africa Mice Expo. So this is, you've come at the right time. We'll make sure we tap into you for and come in to support us on our panel discussions. So we are having a Mice Expo. Then we've also introduced a weddings fair, which we'll be hosting. And then the last one is an art exhibition. So those 3 will be the new initiatives we are running this year.
41 years of operation. How does Sarit Expo support the Kenyan mice private sector?
That's a really good question, because you specifically said the private sector, but it's the support we give as Sarit Expo even extends to government. And I'll just try to, give you the insights on the 2 fronts.
All right.
So for private sector, to be able to execute experiences here or events here, whether they are our internal events or it is from an international organizer, there are elements that they will have to do in country. So we have a huge data bank of third-party service providers.
All right.
So an international expo is coming, they have need for printing of the lanyards.
Yeah.
We will get one of our SMEs to come and support.
All right.
There's somebody who wants audiovisual, massive audiovisual equipment will work.
Yeah.
There are those who are seeking accommodation. We work with the hotels around us.
Yeah.
There are those who maybe even want, after they finish, the delegates want to go for a tour of the Nairobi National Park. We'll get a travel agent. So in terms of that economy or that part, we support because we work with a lot of third-party providers, because it doesn't make sense for us to, for example, have all that in-house when we probably are using them 2-3 times a year. So we are sticking to our core business, but we are able to extend. I think you know the expo, this is not a hotel, so we don't have our in-house catering. Yeah. Whenever we have events here, we are able to stage with proper catering because, again, we work with third-party service providers.
So you guys have a big kitchen around?
We have a massive kitchen, actually, which can, our kitchen, if you had time, I would have shown you, you can be able to pull up meals there for 2,000 people.
Ah,
yes.
2,000?
Yes.
Ah.
Massive, massive kitchen. So even when events are being held here, there are those organizers who will just have their caterer go to the kitchen and bring the food fresh out of there. They don't have to ferry food.
All right. Government.
Yeah.
You also support the government.
First, even as I say government, I think it's normally a duty for, or it comes with being a Kenyan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But government obviously have are at the forefront of exposing mice, exposing venues.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many of the delegations, when they are going on different tours, reading trade, and a question comes up about, are you able to do this? They obviously say, as a country, we are able to host conferences, we are able to host summits, and because they know those facilities are available within the country, whether in private hands or government owned.
Yeah.
Now, when I say how we support government, if we are having, and I'll go back to just what has recently happened, we had Afritech, almost 2,000 international delegates were here. Yeah. We had Air Cargo the following week with another even huger number in the country. Think about the injection into the economy.
All right.
Starting from somebody who has paid for the visa to enter the country, think about all the facilitation for travel, think about how we are feeding into the accommodation. All of those people are sleeping somewhere. Right. Think about the foreign exchange they are bringing in and all that they will spend within.
All right.
And then lastly is, even as we try to, with the government at the forefront, spearhead the country as a preferred mice destination. Those are 4,000 people who have seen it. Those are 4,000 straight ambassadors who go to say, in places they are sitting, people are saying, I want to do something in Kenya, or I want to do something in Africa. They'll be the ones to say, no problem, they have the capacity. Go to Sarit, go to, any other center that we have. So that drives and feeds into part of the government objectives, of course, of driving tourism. So this is coming in the form of business tourism. And a lot of them either will fly into the country 2 or 3 days before or stay 2 or 3 days afterwards to visit the Mara.
All right.
To go down to the coast. So all of that is driving and keeping the economy moving. Yes.
And also I see it's also giving business to, it's also incentivizing the leisure market.
Yes.
Because once you are at the pre and post events.
The pre and post events.
So they're able to visit the Mara.
Exactly.
So it's a good stuff also on the other side. But I'm glad Sarit Expo actually it's put in Kenya on the global map when it comes to exhibition. And Sarit Expo has a key strength in exhibition. So in terms of bidding, does Sarit bid for international expositions to come and host in Kenya? Or how do you look at the overall marketing initiative for hosting exhibition and expos here?
Okay, thank you for that. And I will just, as I field that question, I'll just give I'll need to refer to the history of the Expo Centre.
Yeah.
So a lot of the business, especially for expositions that we host here, the exhibitions, is word of mouth.
All right.
Word of mouth. And then, so over the years as it has evolved, one expo organizer speaks to another, say if you're thinking of hosting in Kenya, so we get a lot of referral business.
All right.
Now, once the referral business has set in, and that's the model for, if you talk to even other centers, they will tell you, most expos, like think about our Nairobi International Show. When did you first hear about it? Can you remember the way people used to be taken in school?
Yeah, actually, when I was young and I was still a kid.
Did you see the venue or the date ever changing?
No,
so it's known, it's always like in the month, I think November.
Actually, yeah, midterm, then also this wakati.
And then it's timed with midterm.
Yes.
And then it's always at the SK grounds.
Yeah.
Why? Because from the time it was introduced, it has worked.
All right.
And that is why the organizers, even if it was an external party, has not thought to, can I move it to another place? So that is the model for exhibition. So an exhibition, the hard work, and it's the same thing that speaks to customer service. You'll hear people saying always, to acquire a client is the easier part. To keep them is the hardest.
Yes.
So it's the same model. So for us, we have, the way I've told you, we have holidays, which is going to the 40th year. We also have exhibitions here that come year in, year out. If you ask people about colors of India, if you ask about the Egypt Expo, they are here almost as long as. So that is the nature of our international exhibitions. And also international expos, I can just give you a small insight into the models that they use.
Yeah.
So if we have Big Five, which deals with building and construction, okay, they are doing it for this region, okay? So it moves around. You can find there's a Big Five somewhere in West Africa holding for that region. There'll be a Big Five in India, a Big Five. That is the models. They move around the expo to showcase. So they have a sort of fixed calendar and the places that they go to. So you'll find for us, now once we have done all the work and been able to onboard Simon as a client, you have come, you have loved the venue, you've had a good experience, your exhibitors, everything is okay. All you do is you book again for next year and book again for next year. So we have those, we have a very good solid base of repeat clients. When we get opportunities to bid, we do put in our bids, and it's one of the areas we are trying to move strongly into, so that we can also bid for any of the international expos or international conferences or summits out there. But largely it is repeat business that we have. Yes.
All right. So Sarit Expo has strong ties in the Middle East and the Asia Pacific. So why is it so? I think those guys are really, what's up?
What's up, I would say too, is that when we think about the world, where do the world buy from right now? Where does the world buy from? Whether it's America, whether it's Canada, whether it's UK, Europe, where do we buy from? We are all buying from that region you have cited.
All right.
And so I believe they also see a need to be proactive in terms of making sure they're exposing us early to what they have. And that's why they'll keep on holding all of these expositions in our region. And in our region, I mean, yes, because we are a huge market for them. And then there's also that constraint of how many of us are able to go there to see the product, to see the new technologies. How many of us are able, if you think about, we have one big expo here which is called Kenya Industrial Estates Expo, and it has almost 200 exhibitors from China. And when they stage it here, how many of us would have been able to go see the 200 there?
All right.
But when they come here, they're exposed to a bigger part of the population. And when I talk about that, remember also, for expos that are held here, the international expos do not only attract the Kenyan public. We have people coming from Uganda, coming from Rwanda, coming from South Africa. Yes. And it's the reverse. I don't know if you saw when there was this John Legend. He was performing at Kigali last month. We had Kenyans going there.
Yes, actually going to Rwanda.
Yes.
All right.
When Burna Boy was here, I was seeing there were people coming from South Africa to come. So we are able to feed into each other. Because that is the model. So we have a lot of repeat business, but we still keep shooting for more. We can't say we are at capacity that now because we have repeat we are sitting. No, we just want to upscale, attract more value, more variety, more categories of representation. Earlier on we talked about how education is a sector that we have so many things happening around in terms of showcasing universities worldwide. So there are those areas which are not yet fully exploited, and so those are sectors we'd like to come to be represented here. And then for our internal events, it's also one of the areas we see growth for, so that, yes, we are a venue. We see all these best practices for things happening here. Those we are tapping into to be able to stage our events in the same way. So also those are growth areas for us.
All right. So engaging,
and we host a lot of exhibitions are hosted by organizers in those regions. From India, we have many, from China, from Dubai. We have a lot of those organizing the events here.
Actually, I did look at that perspective. So thank you to your banking knowledge. So and trade facilitation. So now tell us how the Middle East and the Asia Pacific, it's a huge market.
It is a huge market.
It's a whole economy.
Yes, it's a huge market, and I think they also, I just believe maybe it's a. And many people who do business will tell you, to be successful, many people, you have to be very proactive and aggressive. So they are quick to come on board and showcase what they have as early, because you know the world is so competitive now. So you might have your good product or your good service somewhere waiting for people to come to you, and they don't come. But there's another one who is thinking, no, let me take you to them. Because also for all the exhibitors you'll see in an international expo, they have paid to come and stage, you know, and showcase. So it's because they see a need. And then our location as a country is very strategic. So they know I'm not only going to get people from Kenya, I'll get people coming from the other part of Africa.
All right. So it said that I for mice incentive is silence. So is it
exactly
so?
That's why I think you've seen it for me. I'm saying meetings, I'm saying conferences,
so the eye
I'm
is
saying
silent.
exhibitions. The eye is silent. So maybe you can tell me something about the eye.
So so in terms of incentives, during my stakeholder engagement, most of my stakeholders are saying they're not getting as much incentive in the activities that they are doing. So is it so for Sarit Center? Are there incentives that you guys are getting, maybe support from other sources? And if the eye is silent, so what is this incentive that Sarit Expo will actually look at and exploit to move the mice business?
For incentive, really, what would you say? The easiest for me, or the one that comes top of mind,
the low-hanging fruit,
the low-hanging fruit is, and quite a bit has been done, is for any of the international visitors who are coming for conferences, summits, expositions. Can they be given an incentive in terms of the visa fee? For the Africans probably will come in without. How do we tie that in when they come in? I think that would be one of the big ones. Could there be rebates that speak into the accommodation sector from government through to the accommodation hosts? Because that is also normally a big injection of cash flow into our economy. And then I think even to understand a good incentive or how it would fit in, there could definitely be more tangible ones that we would ask for, is for the government to just have also private sector on the table. Because once we know where government's thinking is at, what their outlook is for the industry, then we would also be able to say, okay, if this is where you're thinking of going, as private sector, this area would like to plug in. Can you push something our way? But I think also there needs to be some work done around just making sure all stakeholders within the industry are up to speed in terms of what's happening, what's they're looking forward, so that we see how to work together, because there's enough business for all of us. And apart from that, there's also a lot we are leaving on the table, because we are not working together.
Yeah. All right. So adding to that, last week during the Meetings Africa event, so the Minister of Tourism said that trust is a key important element for the MICE industry, and also we've seen there is a research that was released last week by Edelman, showcasing how trust. It's called actually the Trust Barometer Report, and trust actually from the government declined so much, and the highest being the NGOs, the private sector, followed by the media, then last the government. Again, trust in the MICE industry. So why is trust a whole issue? Because we're not seeing as much collaboration as you're supposed to have to. We're not seeing as much partnership. I don't understand. How do we build trust in the MICE ecosystem?
Yeah, that we would require some kind of brainstorm session, because it's true, it is an issue that is battled with. So we fear to collaborate because there's that element of, okay, if I bring Simon on board, maybe tomorrow I find the client is no longer mine, is yours. So there's just a level of it speaks to integrity and character. So I don't know how that will be done. You see, if I'm speaking just about the Expo Center, for us to collaborate and partner is normally a no-brainer. Because we believe when we are giving that, executing the event, giving that experience, we are not the holders of all the moving parts. And that's why we are happy to onboard the right people, so that we're able to give value, because it should be the customer in mind. So it's something which should be discussed on a table, but I cannot sit here tell you that I have the solution for that. But it is an issue. It's something that needs to be
just interrogate ourselves and what's happening.
On what can we do.
This conversation cannot be complete without the element of sustainability and CSR. So what are some of the Go Green initiatives that Sarit Expo has incorporated? And of late I've seen Sarit integrating CSR activities, so like the reducing the menstrual poverty, right?
Thank you for that. We live in a community, all of us, and so if there are ways, as the Expo Center, we believe if there are ways we can come to tap in to make even one person's life easier, then we would like to do it. So last year we came up with what we are calling, that's our always on initiative. So we introduced a sanitary pad collection initiative, and our intention is to be able to donate this to as many girls centers as possible around. We spearheaded it last year, and thanks to the public, they also heeded our call. We got a lot of donations coming in, both in cash and in kind. And we did our first visit to Mukuru kwa Njenga in December. We have another one planned for a different center by half year. And the second level of that is we also would like to just speak into the climate and the trees situation, because this is something which, again, to me, is an initiative that will never die. There are times a cause will come, it is a temporary cause, and we can rally around it, and when it's finished, it's closed. But there are those which will be. So we would like to identify or associate ourselves with causes that are evergreen. It's always on. So when we talk about the menstrual poverty, that is always there. There'll always be girls coming up who need that support. And for trees, obviously, that is something that goes on and on. On the sustainability front, and that one is, it's a big issue for the world today. And for us, we feel it also more intimately as a convention center. Why do I say that? We earlier talked about, you asked me, do you bid for work? Almost all bid documents have a whole area just around what are your sustainability practices. It is something that you could actually lose out on a booking because of lack of some of those practices. So as the Expo Center, there are those which we have introduced, we still have a ways to go in terms of bringing more, but I'll be able to point out, for example, we have introduced glass bottles for our meeting rooms.
All right.
Then, of course, we have the different bins to be able to get rid of waste in the right manner. Then, of course, there are those ones of the normal switching off lights where you're not using them. Those will continue to be there. However, we do realize that there are ways we should be speaking into more of those, and we also collect the data on that. So we are able to give numbers on what we are saving in terms of waste, what we'll be able to save in terms of switching from solar to the 100% grid from the electrical power supply. Yeah, that's one of the things that we are working on. Yeah.
So last year, Sarit Expo invested actually millions of money when it comes to IT infrastructure, internet connectivity. So what was the initiative like?
Yeah, we wanted to be able to serve, especially for the expos that we hold, the international ones, their capacity requirements for connectivity is normally high. So we wanted to ensure that once you're here, you're able to get your needs. So of course, we now have Wi-Fi connectivity throughout, and you can get up to a maximum of, the terabyte big capacity. Yes. So there's no, even the summit we had for Afritech, it was able to be powered well. And of course, we do that with partners. We're also very, very strong on partnerships. Yeah. And I think for anyone who follows us closely, you'll notice there are very few initiatives we run on our own. We always will be working with partners because collaboration is the way to go, and partnership is the way to go in today's world.
Yeah, exactly. So as we come to finish the podcast, what's the industry MICE outlook for Kenya? Are we headed in the right direction? So just give us an overview of the insight. What do you expect in 2025? What's trending? What are the things that are changing? Is Kenya headed in the right direction? I know our small brothers just surpassed us like that. Our neighbor again is coming so fast. Is Kenya catching up? Are we headed in the right direction?
I would say that yes, we are headed in the right direction.
All right.
If we put action towards, then we are. Because in terms of just thinking about having a strategy to guide the industry,
all right,
and after it's on paper and signed off, is actualizing. I think the execution part is what would fail us. But in terms of knowing where we need to go, because already we are very well situated with infrastructure, with what we have today, we are well situated for takeoff. But will we do it? That is what begs the question is, how do we move? So the future is bright, so long as our environment stays stable. And when I say environment, I mean in all aspects. I mean financially, in terms of exchange rates. I mean politically, in terms of a stable climate. Then really there's a lot of things that we can do. So it's just a question of, I believe, the government spearheading the effort in a very strong way, bringing all the right people on the table, and we will be able to, our small sisters and brothers around will be able to know that this is the place where everything is happening. So the future is bright. I do know also from the private sector, we have a number of other expo centers coming up. And this obviously tells you that there's need for that in the country.
All right. So where do we expect to see Sarit Expo in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, how do I answer that question?
It looks like there are so many plans.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know where to start. But you want to, I think in 5 years you'll still see us here. Not you think, we will still be here, doing our part in terms of supporting the industry and its stakeholders, and supporting government in any way that we could in terms of driving that agenda. So we are not going anywhere. We are MICE. Happy to be here. Exactly. Thank you.
But I'm glad because Sarit is actually, putting Kenya on the global map when it comes to exhibition. And it's very hard. It's not complete to finish MICE without mentioning Sarit. And also, Sarit Expo is strategically located at the heart of Kenya's capital. And you know, it's so interesting also to have a venue within a shopping mall. In fact, it baffles so many delegates, right? So, so because you look at it in terms of the impact of Sarit for the last 41 years, what impact will you say that has had in the Kenyan mice ecosystem?
Impact, first, when you just say the name Sarit, even before adding Expo Centre where we are sitting today, Sarit is it's a household name in the country. There's almost, many other places have come up, but people know Sarit. Sarit is a very Kenyan brand, so to speak. And if you think about the growth over those 40 years, it tells you the impact it's having. Otherwise, we would not be having the expansion we are seeing on the mall side. We would not be sitting here today. And when you talk about expos specifically, there's no conversation you will have without Sarit Expo Centre taking a center stage on that. Because we do host a lot of international events which are big, and that gives a profile to ourselves and to the country. So we're impactful in terms of enabling business trade conversations, because they'll happen on this floor, in terms of business matchmaking, in terms of expansion of business, in terms of forging friendships, networking, and that will go on.
Okay, so Sarit also is tapping into the industry conversations. I trust over this year you'll be having an expo mice related. So you can tell us something about the event.
Well, I'll just give you, we will actually be hosting, we have introduced our first Africa Mice Expo. Why do I emphasize the Africa on it? I could have just said we're having a Mice Expo. It's because our ambition is to see this grow beyond our borders. So that when we are having these conversations, it's not only the mice industry in Kenya, but can we have industry outside Kenya coming in to tap into those conversations of how we make our industry better. So we will be having representation from all sectors that touch on mice, whether it's the registration people, whether it's the sound equipment people, whether it's the conversations on where to go. So it will be a 2-day, very vibrant event with a lot of panel discussions around what's happening within our space and how to make it better. And we look forward to you joining and being part of that conversation, because you are one of the big voices within the industry. So it will be taking place at the end of May, and we look forward to having you. We'll definitely keep you updated on what's happening.
Okay, interesting. So that's a good initiative. Also amplifying the mice voice. Parting shot. So words of wisdom. We need words of wisdom. We need the, we need a parting shot. So what are you going to tell our viewers? What are you going to tell the industry? Because the people are watching, we say Mice Diary, it's amplifying the mice voice. It's a B2B platform, industry engagement, and not Kenya alone and East Africa, but also Africa at large. And actually, as we speak here, also we're working closely with the, Ministry of Tourism, South Africa, working closely with the South Africa Convention Bureau. So to see how best do we tap this conversation and ensure we've started a mice talk, a mice media platform. Anyway, take it over to you. So words of wisdom, what are you going to tell the mice stakeholders?
Now, for me, I'm happy to give a parting shot, but it will not be specific to or just to the mice industry, just something for all of us who will be watching this podcast. And it's something I keep telling